The concrete felt ice cold against my spine as they slammed me against the pillar. Four silhouettes against the dim parking garage lights, their breath visible in the December air. Kestrel, with her perfectly manicured nails digging into my shoulder. Mercer, his 6'4" frame blocking any escape route. Davin, whose glasses caught what little light existed in this corner of level B3. And finally, Royce, the silver-haired puppet master who hadn't bothered to dirty his hands, standing back and watching. "Listen carefully, Iris," Kestrel hissed, her jasmine perfume mixing with the smell of oil and exhaust fumes. "That Singapore promotion wasn't optional. It was a solution to our problem." "Your problem," I corrected, wincing as Mercer's grip tightened on my arm. 3 years, Davin said, checking his watch with practiced indifference. 3 years we've carried you, covered your mistakes, mentored you, and this is how you repay us? My heart thundered against my ribs. The garage's emergency lights cast strange shadows across their faces, transforming familiar colleagues into grotesque masks. "I built this department," Royce finally spoke, his voice eerily calm. "Do you know how many careers I've ended without leaving fingerprints?" The others parted as he approached, his Italian leather shoes clicking on concrete. He stopped inches from my face. "You think refusing Singapore protects you? By Monday morning, you'll be an anecdote. The ambitious woman who couldn't handle pressure. The diversity hire who failed spectacularly." My legs threatened to buckle, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "The senior team already thinks you're unstable," Kestrel added, flicking invisible lint from her sleeve. "Those little suggestions I've been planting for months, they've taken root beautifully," Mercer chuckled. "Remember Valerie? Top performer until she crossed us. Last I heard, she was selling insurance in Tulsa." The concrete pillar's coldness seeped through my blouse. 4 against 1 in an empty garage, 5 floors underground, with security gone for the night. The weight of their betrayal crushed harder than their physical intimidation. "We own this place," Davin whispered. "Every promotion, every bonus, every opportunity flows through us." "Move her car," Royce instructed Mercer. "I don't want it found quickly." As Mercer released me and demanded my keys, I felt something break inside. Not my spirit, something else. The illusion that playing by the rules offered protection. The belief that my work would shield me. I reached into my pocket, but instead of keys, I pulled out my phone. "Before you continue, there's something you should know." They all froze as I held up the screen, showing them what I'd prepared for exactly this moment. Their expressions shifted. Confusion, disbelief, then the first flickers of fear. "What is that?" Kestrel demanded, her voice no longer quite so steady. I smiled for the first time since they'd cornered me. "Insurance." Royce lunged for the phone, but I was ready. What happened next would change everything. For them, for me, for the entire company. But none of us could have predicted just how far the ripples would spread. If this story of corporate betrayal has captured your attention so far, tap like and subscribe to hear how Iris turns the tables on her manipulative managers. Comment your predictions about what's on her phone. I promise the truth is more shocking than anything you might guess. Let's continue this journey together. My name is Iris Thalia, and until 3 days ago, I was the invisible backbone of Vortex Operations Division. Not the kind of invisible that gets overlooked, the kind that sees everything while being seen by no one. I orchestrated systems, analyzed efficiency patterns, and silently fixed problems before executives knew they existed. People underestimate quiet women with exceptional memories. Growing up with 4 louder siblings taught me the power of observation. My grandmother, who raised us after our parents died, always told me, "Still waters run deep, Iris. Let them mistake your silence for weakness." I carried that wisdom into my career. For 7 years, I watched the political games at Vortec from the shadows. I documented patterns, built relationships with administrative assistants, the true power brokers, and waited patiently for my opportunity. When I joined operations 3 years ago, Royce was already a legend, ruthless efficiency personified. He'd risen from junior analyst to division head in record time, bringing his 3 protégés, Kestrel, Mercer, and Davin, with him. They called themselves the Quad. Everyone else called them the Executioners when they weren't listening. Their method was elegant in its simplicity. Identify talented employees with breakthrough ideas. Isolate them by suggesting they work independently for maximum creative freedom. Once the innovation was near completion, manufacture a crisis requiring all hands on deck. During the chaos, extract the core concept, repackage it, and present it to leadership as their own work. When the original creator objected, the quad would express concerns about their mental health, emotional stability, or team compatibility. The pattern was always the same: foreign transfer, demotion, or resignation within 3 months. I watched them destroy 17 careers this way. I should have realized I'd become a target when Royce personally requested me for the microprocessor cooling project. 6 months of grueling work culminated in a breakthrough that could reduce energy consumption by 38%. The day I completed my prototype, Kestrel suggested I take a long weekend, my first in months. I returned to find Royce presenting my cooling system to the board as the quad's innovation. My name appeared once in the 60-page report, under Administrative Support. Outstanding work. Our CEO, Halima, had told them during the meeting I wasn't invited to attend. This positions us years ahead of competitors. I confronted Royce privately afterward. His response was a masterclass in gaslighting. Iris, you misunderstand your role. You provided technical support while we developed the conceptual framework and commercial application. I'm concerned about your perception of events. Perhaps you're overwhelmed? That night, I made a decision. I would not become number 18. I began carrying a small audio recorder everywhere. I documented every conversation, every brainstorming session, where my ideas mysteriously became theirs. I built relationships with their previous victims, creating a network of the exiled and demoted. We shared patterns, compared notes, assembled timelines. For 18 months, I gathered evidence while performing exactly as expected, competent but unthreatening. I manufactured small mistakes they could catch to feed their sense of superiority. I watched them grow complacent about my presence. The Singapore offer came exactly as I predicted, a prestigious opportunity to lead our new Asia operations, 10,000 miles from headquarters, 5 reporting layers between me and any meaningful decision-making, a corporate exile disguised as promotion. When I declined, citing family considerations, the quad's response was immediate. Suddenly, my performance reviews contained concerns. My project access became restricted. Colleagues grew distant after mysterious closed-door meetings. Yesterday, Halima's assistant Zuri slipped me a note. They're meeting after hours to discuss your situation. Parking level B3, 9 p.m. I knew what discussing my situation meant. I'd seen it happen to others. The intimidation, the threats, the career execution. So I prepared. I charged my phone battery to 100%. I wore clothes with deep pockets. I arrived early and chose my position carefully. What the quad didn't know was that their reign was about to end. They thought they were cornering a desperate target. Instead, they were walking into my carefully constructed trap. As Royce lunged for my phone in that dimly lit garage, I sidestepped smoothly. My thumb had already pressed send before he'd even moved. "What have you done?" he demanded, face contorted with uncharacteristic panic. "I've transmitted everything," I replied calmly. "Every stolen idea, every manufactured crisis, every threatened employee, every instance of fraud you've committed over the past 3 years." Kestrel laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Your word against ours. Who do you think they'll believe?" I smiled. "Not my word, your words. Every meeting recorded, every threat documented, every victim's testimony compiled." "You can't record conversations without consent," Davin snapped. "That's illegal." "Not in this state," I countered. "Single-party consent is all that's required, and I definitely consented." Mercer stepped toward me menacingly. "No one will see whatever you sent. We control the internal communication systems." "Which is why I didn't use internal systems," I replied. "The board received everything directly to their personal emails 10 seconds ago. So did the external auditors, and Halima, and your previous victims." The color drained from Royce's face. For the first time in 3 years, I saw naked fear in his eyes. "You're bluffing," Kestrel whispered, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Halima's personal number lit up the screen. I held it up for them to see before answering and putting it on speaker. "Iris," Halima's voice echoed in the concrete structure. "Are you safe? Where are you right now?" "Parking level B3, I answered calmly. "With Royce, Kestrel, Mercer, and Davin. Stay on the line. Security is coming down. The board has called an emergency meeting for 7 a.m. tomorrow. Don't go home alone tonight." The quad exchanged panicked glances as the implications sank in. "What's in those files?" Royce demanded, his composure shattered. "Everything," I replied simply, "including what you did to Nadine's climate control system." and Elijah's supply chain algorithm, and how you destroyed Oliver's career over the battery technology that won you that industry award. The distant sound of security doors opening echoed through the garage. The Quad's perfect world was collapsing, and they knew it. Davin stepped back, already distancing himself. Royce made the decisions. I just followed direction. How loyal, I observed. Just like you were to the team members you helped destroy. Kestrel's eyes narrowed dangerously. This isn't over. You have no idea the connections we have. Had, I corrected. The connections you had. By morning, no one will risk being associated with you. As security officers approached with purposeful strides, Mercer hissed, "Watch your back, Iris. Always watch your back." I stood perfectly still, watching as the four most powerful people in our division were escorted to separate vehicles. Their faces registered shock, outrage, calculation, and in Royce's case, a grudging respect. "This isn't finished," he said quietly as he passed. "You're right about that," I agreed. "This is just the beginning." As their cars disappeared up the exit ramp, Halima's voice came through my phone. "Iris, are you still there?" "I'm here," I answered, suddenly feeling the adrenaline drain from my body. "Come to my house. We need to prepare for tomorrow. What you've uncovered, it's worse than I imagined." As I walked toward my car, my legs finally began to shake. The night air had never tasted sweeter. The real battle would begin in the morning, and the Quad still had powerful friends. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, I would sleep without fear. What I didn't know then was how drastically everything would change, or how high the stakes would become when the Quad decided that if they were going down, they wouldn't go down alone. The morning arrived with storm clouds gathering above the city skyline. Halima's penthouse offered a panoramic view that would normally take my breath away, but my attention was fixed on the dozen text messages lighting up my phone. Former colleagues, current team members, even the receptionist from the 4th floor, all sending variations of the same question. "Is it true?" "Eat something," Halima urged, sliding a plate of untouched breakfast aside to spread printouts across her dining table. At 58, she moved with the energy of someone decades younger, her crimson suit a stark contrast to her silver-cropped hair. The board meeting starts in 90 minutes, and the Quad has been working their connections all night. I picked up a toast point, more to appease her than from hunger. How bad? 3 board members have already called demanding explanations. 2 are claiming your evidence was obtained unethically. She tapped a particular document. Royce's mentor sits on the compensation committee. Kestrel's uncle is golfing buddies with our largest shareholder. The toast turned to ash in my mouth. "You think they'll survive this?" Halima's eyes met mine. "I think they're fighting for their lives, which means they'll be both dangerous and desperate." She paused. "Especially when they realize what else is missing." "What do you mean?" "The quarterly financials show irregularities, patterns I've questioned for years but could never trace. I think your Quad has been siphoning innovation bonuses through shell consultancies. If that's true..." My phone rang, interrupting her. "Unknown number. Put it on speaker," Halima instructed. I answered cautiously. "Hello? They're saying you fabricated everything." Nadine's voice came through, breathless and urgent. Nadine had been my predecessor on the cooling system project before her mysterious mental health leave 18 months ago. "Royce is claiming you manipulated the audio files to frame them because they rejected your romantic advances." My stomach lurched. "That's absurd." "It's working, Iris. Jenkins from legal just called an emergency review of your evidence before the board can see it." Halima grabbed the phone. "Nadine, it's Halima. Where are you right now?" "At home. 3 other former employees contacted me this morning. We've been comparing notes. Gather everyone who's willing to testify. Bring them to the executive entrance by 8:15. Use my name with security." After ending the call, Halima turned to me. "They're attempting to discredit your evidence before it's even examined. Classic Royce. Will bringing victims forward help?" I asked. "It changes the narrative from your word against theirs to a pattern with multiple witnesses." She checked her watch. "Let's go." "And Iris? From this moment forward, trust no one inside that building except me." The journey to headquarters felt surreal. Streets I'd traveled daily now seemed alien as my mind raced through contingencies. What if the Quad had secured enough board support overnight? What if my evidence was ruled inadmissible? What if 17 destroyed careers wasn't enough proof of their pattern? As we approached the gleaming glass tower, I spotted them. 5 former employees clustered nervously by the executive entrance. Nadine with her trademark purple glasses. Oliver, still using the cane from his stress-induced collapse. Valerie, who'd actually ended up in Tulsa after her project was stolen. Two others I recognized from the Innovation Department's departed talent list. Reinforcements, Halima murmured approvingly. Security waved us through without question, a small victory that steadied my nerves momentarily. We gathered in Halima's private conference room adjacent to the boardroom, the former employees sharing stories that fit together like puzzle pieces. They invited me to work independently on the climate system, Nadine explained, hands shaking slightly. Said my creativity needed space. 2 weeks before completion, Kestrel suggested I take mental health leave. They told me my supply chain solution wasn't viable, Oliver added bitterly, then implemented it exactly as I designed it 3 months later. Halima checked her phone. The board's assembling now. They've granted both sides 15 minutes to present. My heart pounded. Both sides? They're treating this like a debate? Politics, she said simply. 3 board members worked directly with Royce for years. They need procedural cover for whatever decision they make. A knock at the door made us all jump. Halima's assistant entered, expression grim. They're ready. Both parties are requested to enter simultaneously. As we approached the boardroom's double doors, I saw them for the first time since the garage confrontation. The quad stood in the hallway's opposite end, impeccably dressed and utterly composed. Royce caught my eye and smiled, not with anger, but with the serene confidence of someone holding a winning hand. That smile chilled me more than any threat. Remember, Halima whispered as the doors swung open. They excel at appearing untouchable. It's their best weapon. The boardroom fell silent as both groups entered. 12 board members sat around a massive table, expressions carefully neutral. Between them sat Jenkins from legal, surrounded by stacks of binders. Board Chair Tawny gestured to separate seating areas. In the interest of resolving this matter efficiently, each side will present their case. No interruptions during presentations. Royce stepped forward immediately. Chairwoman, members of the board, I'll be brief. Yesterday, a disgruntled employee launched serious allegations against myself and 3 senior managers after being denied a promotion she wanted. The evidence presented, manipulated audio recordings and testimony from former employees with grievances, represents a coordinated attempt at character assassination. He moved with practiced precision, making eye contact with specific board members who nodded almost imperceptibly. Our legal team has identified 17 instances where these recordings were edited, spliced, or taken out of context. More disturbingly, we've discovered that Miss Thalia approached several former employees weeks ago, offering incentives for supporting her claims. My jaw dropped at the brazen lie. Before I could protest, Kestrel distributed folders to each board member. Inside, you'll find time-stamped communications showing Miss Thalia's pattern of inappropriate workplace behavior, including unwanted advances toward Mr. Bellamy after her performance review last quarter. I froze, momentarily unable to breathe. They weren't just defending themselves. They were systematically destroying me. Mercer continued smoothly. While we understand Miss Thalia's disappointment at not receiving the Singapore position, this vindictive campaign threatens the stability of our entire organization. We respectfully request that the board dismiss these fabricated allegations and address Miss Thalia's increasingly concerning conduct. Davin concluded with practiced humility. We've dedicated our careers to this company's success. We ask only for the opportunity to continue that work without the shadow of these baseless accusations. The room remained silent as the quad returned to their seats, radiating absolute certainty. Several board members were already reviewing their materials with troubled expressions. Tawny turned to us. Miss Thalia, your response? My legs felt leaden as I stood. The careful case I'd prepared evaporated in the face of their comprehensive attack. They hadn't just denied my allegations, they'd rewritten reality entirely. I looked at Halima, who gave me the smallest nod of encouragement. What you just heard, I began, my voice initially unsteady, was a masterclass in exactly how the quad has operated for years. Take someone's truth, reframe it, present a polished alternative reality, undermine the source. I moved to the center of the room, deliberately avoiding the materials I'd brought. I didn't come with rehearsed statements or coordinated talking points. Instead, I brought people. I gestured to the former employees. Not people I approached with incentives, as they claim, but people who contacted me after receiving my evidence last night. Nadine stood. I'm Nadine Walsh. 3 years ago, my climate control system was appropriated by this team. When I objected, I was diagnosed with workplace stress and offered leave. My innovations have generated approximately $27 million in revenue for this company. I received a fruit basket when I left. Oliver followed. Oliver Marsh. My supply chain optimization system is now the backbone of our distribution network. When I questioned why my name was removed from the patent application, Davin suggested I was confused about my contributions. I was transferred to facilities management within weeks. One by one, they told their stories, not with bitterness, but with the clear-eyed precision of people who had processed their trauma and were finally being heard. I noticed several board members exchanging concerned glances. Jenkins from legal looked distinctly uncomfortable. These patterns aren't coincidences, I continued when they finished. Their strategy, the cooling system that won industry awards last quarter, mine. The talent drain we've experienced, not competition, survival. Every innovative mind that threatens their control is systematically removed. I approached the table and placed my phone in the center. I don't need edited recordings or manipulated evidence. Everything I've provided is verifiable, including conversations where they specifically discussed removing me after I declined Singapore. Royce stood abruptly. Chairwoman, this emotional display doesn't address the documented concerns about Miss Thalia's conduct. We have written evidence. Fabricated evidence, Halima interrupted, rising. As CEO, I've personally reviewed Miss Thalia's communications. Nothing inappropriate exists. Tawny raised her hand for silence. We need time to evaluate these conflicting claims. Both parties will wait separately while the board deliberates. As we filed out, I caught Royce's eye again. The confident smile had vanished, replaced by something calculating. He leaned toward Kestrel, whispering something that made her eyes widen. In the waiting area, tension crackled like static electricity. Nadine squeezed my hand. Whatever happens, you brought us together. That matters. 30 excruciating minutes passed before Jenkins appeared, his expression unreadable. The board requests Miss Thalia and Mr. Bellamy return. Alone. Halima started to object, but I shook my head. It's okay. Walking back into that boardroom beside Royce felt like entering a gladiatorial arena. The board members watched us with grave expressions. Tawny spoke first. After reviewing initial evidence, we find ourselves at an impasse. Both sides present compelling narratives with supporting documentation. My heart sank. They were creating a middle ground, a corporate compromise that would ultimately protect the Quad. Therefore, she continued, we've authorized a full independent investigation by external counsel. During this process, all parties will be placed on paid administrative leave. Royce's face remained impassive, but I caught the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. Administrative leave meant access to systems, time to destroy evidence, opportunity to pressure witnesses. Additionally, Tawny added, all executive access codes will be suspended immediately, building access restricted to investigation interviews only. That twitch became more pronounced. As we turned to leave, Royce's hand caught my wrist, his grip painfully tight, though his expression remained pleasant for anyone watching. You've bought yourself time, nothing more, he whispered. We built this place. We know where the bodies are buried. That's the problem with burying things, Royce, I replied quietly. Someone always knows where to dig. His eyes narrowed fractionally. You don't have everything. If you did, you wouldn't need witnesses and theatrics. A cold realization washed over me. He was right. For all my preparation, something was missing. Something that made him still believe he could win. But what? As security escorted us from the building, the Quad exiting through one door, our group through another, Halima pulled me aside. Administrative leave is their attempt at containment, she murmured. But it also gives us time to find what we're missing. Which is what? I asked, watching the Quad's sleek town car pull away. Halima's eyes followed the same vehicle. Whatever makes Royce believe he's still untouchable. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Marina Pier, 9 p.m. Come alone if you want the missing piece. M. I showed Halima, who frowned. M could be Mercer. It could be a trap. Or it could be what we need, I replied, my mind racing. As raindrops began to fall, I wondered what awaited me at that pier, and whether I was walking into the final piece of the puzzle or a carefully laid trap. Either way, by tomorrow morning, this would end, one way or another. The rain intensified as night fell, transforming the city into a blur of smeared lights and shadowed corners. I parked 3 blocks from Marina Pier, my windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. Every instinct screamed that this meeting was a trap, Yet I couldn't ignore the possibility of finding what we needed. I took precautions. Halima waited in her car 2 blocks away. Nadine and Oliver positioned themselves at opposite ends of the pier, pretending to be a couple sheltering from the rain. I'd activated my phone's location, sharing, and recording functions. If this was an ambush, at least it would be documented. The wooden planks of the pier creaked under my feet as I walked toward the end, rain plastering my hair against my scalp. The usually busy tourist spot stood deserted, just empty benches and closed kiosks stretching into the mist-shrouded water. A solitary figure waited at the furthest point, silhouetted against the harbor lights. Too slight to be Mercer, too tall to be Kestrel. As I approached, the figure turned, and my steps faltered. "Marina," I whispered, recognition dawning. Marina Voss, Royce's former executive assistant. She disappeared 6 months ago after a decade of unwavering loyalty to him. Office rumors suggested a family emergency in Europe. I'd never believed it. "You came alone." Her voice carried the faintest trace of an accent. "Good. Why the secrecy? Why contact me now?" She pulled her coat tighter around her thin frame. "Because you're the first person who's ever gotten this close to exposing them. And because I watched what happened to the others. You were there for all of it." She nodded, rain streaming down her pale face. "For 10 years, I managed Royce's calendar, took his notes, organized his files. I saw everything. Then why didn't you say something?" "Fear at first, then complicity." Her laugh held no humor. "It's surprisingly easy to justify small corruptions when they happen gradually. By the time I realized what I'd become part of, I was already implicated." The wind whipped her words away momentarily. When she continued, her voice had hardened. 6 months ago, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Royce discovered me accessing his private server. He gave me a choice: disappear with a severance package or face fraud charges for actions I'd taken under his direction. She reached into her coat and produced a small waterproof case. I took the money, but I also took insurance. My heart raced as she handed it to me. "What is this?" "The real financial records. Not the ones shown to auditors or the board. The actual flow of innovation bonuses, patent royalties, and acquisition fees. For 7 years, the Quad has been diverting portions of these payments through a complex structure that ultimately leads back to them." I stared at the case in my rain-slicked hands. This is what Halima suspected. Marina's eyes met mine. "It's worse than she knows. They haven't just been stealing from the company. They've been systematically buying shares in competitors before sabotaging promising projects here, then selling when our stock dips. The cooling system you developed? They delayed its implementation by 8 months while positioning their investments. The implications staggered me. That's securities fraud. Among other things, the drives contain everything: transaction records, communication logs, offshore account details. She glanced nervously over her shoulder. "I've been hiding since I left. Tonight is the first time I've returned to the city." "Why now? Why risk coming back?" "Because Royce called me yesterday, demanding I hand over the backup drives I took. He's desperate enough to surface connections even he previously kept hidden." Her voice lowered. "And because I owe it to Elijah." "Elijah?" The name triggered a memory. A brilliant engineer who'd left 2 years ago under murky circumstances. "My fiancé," Marina explained. "His predictive modeling system threatened Royce's control. When they pushed him out, the stress triggered his existing heart condition. He died 3 months later." The rain seemed to fade into the background as the human cost of the Quad's actions crystallized. This wasn't just about stolen ideas or diverted money. People's lives had been destroyed. "Will you testify about this?" I asked. Her face tightened. "I can't. By tomorrow, I'll be out of the country again. Using this will implicate me in their financial schemes. I was the one who processed the paperwork, remember?" A car engine growled somewhere behind us, headlights sweeping across the entrance to the pier. Marina tensed. "I need to go. Be careful with that information. The Quad isn't the only powerful group with something to lose if those records become public." "What do you mean?" "Board members, investment partners, even competitors, there's widespread complicity. Royce documented everything as his protection. Now, it's yours." She started backing away. "Trust Halima if you must trust someone, but verify everything yourself first." With that cryptic warning, she disappeared into the rainy darkness, leaving me clutching the waterproof case like a ticking bomb. The approaching car slowed near the pier entrance. Through the rain-blurred windshield, I recognized Davin behind the wheel, scanning the area. I ducked behind a kiosk, heart pounding until he drove past, apparently continuing his search elsewhere. I texted Halima, got it, not Mercer. Marina V leaving now. The drive to Halima's penthouse felt interminable, every car behind me a potential threat. By the time I arrived, Nadine, Oliver, and 2 other former employees had gathered in her living room, tension evident in their postures. Marina Voss, Oliver said when I explained. I remember her. She was always there, always watching, never speaking. The perfect accomplice, Nadine added. Halima connected the drives to a secured laptop, her expression growing increasingly grim as she scrolled through the contents. This goes beyond corporate theft, she finally said. They've been manipulating our stock through strategic project sabotage. The board members named in these files. This could collapse the entire company if handled incorrectly. So what do we do? I asked. She looked up, determination hardening her features. We don't go to the board. Not yet. First, we need leverage that doesn't destroy what we're trying to save. For the next 3 hours, we dissected the drive's contents. The picture that emerged was breathtaking in its complexity and devastating in its implications. The Quad hadn't just stolen ideas, they'd weaponized innovation itself, creating an ecosystem of corruption that extended far beyond our company. At 2 a.m., my phone rang, unknown number again. I know you met Marina, Royce's voice came through, unnervingly calm. Whatever she gave you, it's not worth your career or your life. The threat hung in the air between us. Is that what you told Elijah? I asked. His momentary silence spoke volumes. You don't understand what you're involved with now? He finally responded. This isn't just about us anymore. You'll be going against people who don't play by corporate rules. Neither do I replied, ending the call. Halima looked up from the laptop. He's scared. Good, I said, surprising myself with my steadiness. Because tomorrow, he loses everything. Dawn broke with renewed determination. While the Quad believed we were gathering financial evidence, we'd spent the night executing a different plan entirely, one that would render their powerful connections irrelevant. At 7 a.m., Halima activated the first phase with a single phone call to the board chair. Tawny, she said crisply, I'm exercising my emergency executive authority under Bylaw 87.3 to call an extraordinary general meeting. 9 a.m., all shareholders, not just the board. By 8 a.m., bewildered shareholders were arriving at headquarters, summoned by an urgent notification citing material risks to corporate value requiring immediate attention. The Quad arrived together, their confident facades now showing cracks. Royce caught my eye across the lobby, his silent message clear, last chance to back down. I smiled in response, watching confusion replace his intimidation. At precisely 9 a.m., with the auditorium filled beyond capacity, Halima took the podium. The usual corporate platitudes were noticeably absent from her opening. Shareholders, employees, members of the board, I've called this emergency meeting because our company stands at a critical juncture. For years, we've experienced a puzzling pattern, breakthrough innovations developed internally, followed by inexplicable delays in implementation, coinciding with advantageous market positions taken by specific investment vehicles. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Yesterday, evidence emerged suggesting this pattern was not coincidental but orchestrated. Royce stood abruptly. Chairwoman, this forum is inappropriate for unsubstantiated allegations that are currently under review by the board. Tawny's response surprised everyone. Sit down, Royce. As the largest individual shareholder, I want to hear this. Halima continued. Rather than detail these allegations myself, I've invited those directly affected to speak. One by one, former employees took the microphone, not with vague complaints, but with specific technical details of innovations developed, dates of project delays, and corresponding stock movements. The pattern became undeniable as each person added their piece to the puzzle. I watched the Quad's expressions shift from confidence to concern to barely concealed panic as they realized what was happening. This wasn't a board deliberation they could influence through connections. This was a public reckoning before the people who ultimately owned the company. When my turn came, I didn't mention the financial records or Marina. Instead, I presented a comprehensive analysis of innovation cycles, personnel departures, and market impacts. The pattern laid bare for all to see. The cooling system delay alone cost shareholders an estimated $42 million in unrealized value, I concluded. Multiply that across 17 similar instances, and the impact becomes clear. The auditorium erupted in angry questions. Institutional investors demanded answers. Individual shareholders called for immediate action. Royce made a final desperate attempt, approaching the microphone with practiced authority. These correlations prove nothing without specific evidence of wrongdoing. Miss Thalia has orchestrated a calculated attack on leadership during a sensitive growth phase. Actually, came a voice from the back, there is specific evidence. All heads turned as a federal agent stepped forward, flanked by colleagues in suits. Royce Bellamy, Kestrel Ash, Mercer Wright, Davin Taylor, we have warrants for your arrests on charges of securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The room exploded into chaos as agents moved toward the quad. Kestrel's composure shattered first as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Mercer attempted to flee before being intercepted at a side exit. Davin immediately began offering to cooperate, and Royce, calculating until the end, locked eyes with me one final time. How? He mouthed silently as they led him past. I didn't answer, but Halima stepped close enough for only him to hear. Marina didn't just give us financial records. She gave us the offshore account numbers you used. The SEC has been monitoring them since 5 a.m. As the quad was escorted from the building, the revenge I'd imagined for months unfolded not with dramatic confrontation, but with the simple, devastating power of truth exposed to light. The emergency shareholders meeting transformed into a strategy session for corporate recovery. By afternoon, an interim management committee had been formed, with me as the unexpected nominee to lead operations. You orchestrated this perfectly, Halima told me afterward, as we watched workers removing the quad's names from the executive suite doors. You let them believe we were focused on the financial crimes, which kept them defending on that front. While the real strategy was putting everything before the shareholders directly, I finished, bypassing the compromised board members entirely. Exactly. Though the federal charges are very real, she studied me thoughtfully. You never mentioned Marina or the drives, because this was never about burning everything down. It was about removing the cancer while saving the patient. I looked around at the employees gathering in small groups, their relief palpable. Everyone here deserves better than what the quad created. 3 months later, the transformation was well underway. The quad faced multiple federal indictments. 6 board members had resigned. Most importantly, the 17 exiled employees had been invited back, their innovations finally recognized, their careers restored. On my first official day as Permanent Operations Director, I found a small package on my desk. Inside was a handwritten note. Some battles are worth fighting, even when victory seems impossible. Thank you for fighting ours, Marina. Beneath it lay a simple silver key, the one she'd used to unlock Royce's private server and begin this journey. I keep that key on my desk now, a reminder that true power comes not from intimidation or manipulation, but from patiently gathering truth and choosing precisely the right moment to use it. If this story resonated with you, tap like and share it with someone who's facing their own impossible battle. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's rebuilding what they tried to tear down, only better and stronger than before. Comment below with your thoughts or experiences standing up to workplace bullies. Remember, still waters truly do run deep.